Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. I'm Nathanius, joined by the one and only, the irreplaceable, the indomitable Zombie Grub. How you doing?
Oh my gosh, I have been a commentator longer than you, apparently. That's my new tagline?
Is that, how long have you been casting?
I mean, it depends on what you mean by casting, doesn't it?
What? Yeah, I guess. Like if by casting I went like, when did I start streaming and talking on camera? I guess 2010s when I registered.
Exactly.
I didn't do a tournament until 2012. That's when they cut it off. I couldn't put my below thing. I was like, can I just put Battlecruiser King? They're like, no, it's not serious enough. I'm like, commentator since 2012?
Didn't they put me like as Terran bias confirmed for one?
Yeah.
That's super serious.
That's
though.
okay.
That's fine.
That's all right. We can't all be former SC players like in controls. His might be a little bit more painful
Yeah.
than ours.
Instead, we're current StarCraft players.
Yeah. And the only thing better than currently playing StarCraft is I actually don't have anywhere to go off of that. We've got a skin to show you though, because the war chest is on sale. That's right. Have you ever wanted to bathe in an artificial pool of acid? Well, now you can. The Simulant spawning pool, available exclusively in the current war chest that's going on. Don't forget to check it out on the collection tab under StarCraft 2. Good times. It's great to be here. We're setting up the lobby for our next game. It's the loser match. CVP, someone's going to get eliminated. What are you thinking, Jess?
So, I believe Nurcho beat Drogo to actually qualify
Nice.
for 2. I think it's how it went down. I don't think I got to watch the games, but I don't like Nurcho seemed really just like not what we know him for.
No,
you know?
he looked very. Ugh. And I don't know if ugh could be a state of skill, it just looked. Maybe he's just having a bad day.
It's possible. I feel like Nurcho is one of those guys, though, that just feel like you have to give him the years of experience and the cool collected mark. And like if one of these guys is going to not buck up and actually make it through the losers, maybe it's Drogo who won't be able to come back mentally from being destroyed by Terran tank pushes. Feels bad.
Yeah. I am very glad that I made my sleeper pick on Koss because he looked really good.
Yeah, he did.
And I also was hanging out in the Twitch chat during that match. It was imploding in an inundating sea of Terran tears as they watched a Terran player beat a Protoss. It was great, actually.
I love when everyone sees a Terran beat a Protoss and they're like, yeah, and they say Terrans can't win. And you're like, well.
Yeah. Well, the problem is when you say that it's literally impossible, then every single, no matter what level of skill, just completely throws it off. But we are loaded in to our lower bracket match, spawning in the top right position as the red Protoss player. He is Petit Drogo.
In the top left, his teammate. It is the blue Zerg, Nurcho.
So we're starting here on year 0 again. I like this map. I'm glad we get to see this map. I think they were talking about it on the Pylon show yesterday, but this is probably, and I would agree, one of the best map pools we've had in a while.
Yeah.
Is usually, I like it when map makers experiment with stuff, but sometimes I feel like they go a little bit hard where it's like, let's try having a big ramp, but then they make all the ramps really big, and it's like, well, that's not really the point. But a lot of these maps, maybe not as adventurous, but they feel really good to play on. They're all unique in their own way. I think year 0 stretches really far. I've had some crazy long games on this.
I bet you have, yeah.
Yeah, this one splits. This one splits down the middle pretty nicely.
It does. I agree. I agree with the Pylon show as well. It's I looked at the maps just like face value when they were announced, and I was like, these don't look bad, but
There's nothing that jumps out to me.
Yeah, we'll see what the spatial thing, how I actually play in game, and then I watched it in game, and it was also really good. Every time you think that there might be a problem, like on year 0, for instance, like this kind of awkwardness that goes down here with the brush and the rocks.
Yep.
There's a fixable. There's the solution that isn't just like, well, I hope you don't die there. You
yeah.
go around, you can break down the rocks.
It makes the mid game really intense, but when you get to the point where it's like you can just blow down the rocks without worrying about another army diving on you, you can really get a lot done, and that's always a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say, for people wondering, this is probably one of the best Liberator range map pools we've had in forever. In case anybody was wondering, most of these maps you can cut off 2 or 3 mineral patches outside the range of a Queen or Spore. Just saying. The unsurprising Stargate opener out of the Protoss.
Mm-hmm.
Is about as standard gets?
Yeah, yeah, basically. Probe's going to scout as long as possible until that regular marker for speed. It's like in 50 seconds to a minute. And yeah, just third base coming down. I mentioned that Nerchio, I believe, took out Drogo to make it here. Obviously, Choco's here too. I mean, they both have their valuable skill sets, and both of them kind of had that whole, like, the bleh, as you put it, performances in their first series. But Nerchio's was the similar matchup, whereas Drogo had to face a Tierin. And I don't know, maybe Nerchio was the practice he needed, the warm-up he needed that he didn't get before the game started, and he'll be good to go from here. But it was just like some really, it looked like Gung Fu was in his mind without actually doing anything to like mind weird.
Yeah, because the way that Nerchio played that first series, he didn't really crank out a lot of drones, but he didn't also rush for a bunch of tech. It seemed like too middle of the road, like he was too worried or too prepared for some type of specific build that maybe he saw on ladder. And that's one of the other things that gets a little bit more difficult for us to break down on the desk is these guys do run into each other on the ladder a bunch. In the top end of Europe, there are so many good players that these guys probably played, I would guess, at least a handful of games in the last week. And that's I only say that because there are so many pros that they wouldn't just play the same few people. So maybe Kung Fu Panda just broke out some different builds that he wasn't expecting to see, and he was prepared for an attack that never came.
It's a really good point to make because Gung Fu is this guy that, like, very very notably wasn't really playing a lot in 2018. It was like appearing in a qualifier once every 3 months or so, and then boom, December comes and suddenly he's playing again and he's beating a lot of top tier names. So it has a bit of a style thing where I think Nerchio and Drogo just should have a stronger like amount of matches played against each other through all the metas that have changed since November. I mean, the patch hit November, but I feel like we still had tons of changes in all the matchups. So I think they're going to understand each other a bit more. We'll see a bit, maybe a cleaner PvZ. We do have a double Stargate build from Drogo, though, against a Zerg player going into Roaches, which is sometimes unideal. See how Nerchio is able to play around this.
Yep. I mean, if we think about it, Kung Fu Bandit went for the double Stargate on this map against Nerchio as well. One of the reasons why this map is good for it is we've talked about year 0, the air distance, not super far. There is a bit of a air pathing blocker for the straight path. You kind of have to go around Amon's chin to get around. There he is, the big demon Xel'Naga god, bad boss of StarCraft 2. For those of you like Artosis who've never played the campaign, he's the big bad.
Yep. Or, I mean, it could, I guess it's probably Amon, but it could be another Cthulhu monster.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the whole thing was that he kind of, like, killed and ate all the other Xel'Naga dudes, so it could only be one.
Did he eat them?
Unless Kerrigan actually turns into that monstrosity, which I think they specifically tried to imply would never happen.
You know, we saw, her in their human form towards the end. Spoiler, by the way, but maybe Rainer's into that. Rainer's in a big...
I think the canon is that she also disappeared after all that, so she could be that giant blob monster.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it would sell enough. I don't think it would sell enough. So we've got the Queens pushing the Phoenix back. Double Robo, by the way, is the follow-up. So it's not just the single robotics facility. There's still a Twilight and a Forge. I'm expecting +1 in charge, but Zombie Group, probably, I would guess, a lot of Immortals going to get cranked out for a big 3-base push.
I mean, you can crank out a lot of Immortals off the 2 Robos. So I think so. I mean, certainly they're going to deal with any desperate attack or tricky attack that Nerchio tries to do with Roaches, but Nerchio's not doing that. He is just kind of like, playing the macro game against double Stargate, so doesn't really have to build Roaches. You're not expecting much on the ground initially. You just kind of drone and hope not to take too much damage from the Phoenix. Inevitably, they will get some damage done, but they can't lift 4th bases, for instance, so eventually you'd hope to get that down. And we'll pause.
All right, and just experiencing a little bit of the temporary lags. Things can happen from time to time, so he's just going to wait for that to stabilize, and he should be fine.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
That's all good. It happens. It's the internet. Things do happen occasionally, but good game it looks like so far. Only thing I'm going to point out is that I do like that Nerchio has a bit more workers this game. He's at 71 drones at this point in time, despite taking some hits. He was never really above the 55 mark on this map against Kung Fu Panda until maybe the very end when he had the 5 bases, but it didn't really do too much for him. So,
it
a bit more of a competitive game.
Yeah, it feels like a very clean game for both competitors right now, really. I think Drogo might want to do, is hoping to do more damage with this Phoenix as time goes on, but as I said, it's usually inevitable that they find a drone line with only a Spore Queller or something, but I think Nerchio is...
He says he thinks it's good, but be ready for another pause.
Yeah. Plus, he's probably still going to lose the drone no matter what. Yep.
Yeah. I think if he had -5 ping, he wouldn't have been able to save it.
Yes, so... The game has resumed.
We are back in. The drone that was going to build that base died a horrible, painful death.
Mime the action. If you, oh, there we go.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't know. How do you mime a probe being dead? You just make, I think you do your hands just like, whoop.
I mean, are you...
kind of pop, really.
Are you doing like contemporary art things where like anything can be anything? Or are you actually going to try and do like shadow puppets? I don't know. Well, now we can't try and do it because it's actually in game, so they don't have to do any contemporary art. 10 drones did go down while we were talking about nothing, which was the opening I was trying to say. Like usually it comes up, so a decent amount of workers there. Drogo, meanwhile,
Phoenix doing Phoenix things.
Yeah, and macroing really well.
Yep, getting Storm, bunch of gateways being added on, and like I said, charge +1. There it is, the Observer and the Prism. What did he stop at? Just built up to 3 Immortals.
Yeah. Not as many as I thought before he went to the Warp Prism. And he's in a lot of gateways on these 3 bases, but also Storm. That's a weird one. Storm. Nerchio.
By the way, look at these Artosis pylons in the main.
Hold on, I need to look. Oh yeah,
I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming of 2 pylons being destroyed, shutting down everything.
That probably won't happen in this game. Nerchio is getting that Hive and Aspire instead of going for any like drops or Nidus Worms, but yeah, that would be a pretty sick snipe. Oh well.
Greater Spire, or excuse me, Spire and Hive are on the way. Nerchio, we talked about this actually in the first series. Nerchio did not start a Spire until like the Hive was done. So this looks a lot more clean from him. He's getting the upgrades for the Hydralisks as well, so he'll have the option to make that transition. I think the Phoenix is just poking outside the main base, just a few Overlords, nothing really crazy. And that army you want to be careful with when you move out. Got to let those warp gates finish up, get all the zealot counts going. And with that many storms, it's really nice, but if you do get jumped on top of it, it can be really hard to protect those High Templar because you don't want to storm yourself in that situation.
Yeah, I'm really worried about Drogo's lack of advanced scouting. He lost the Oracle, unfortunately, without being able to respond at all. And I'm not even sure he's scouted that there was a Baneling Nest potential. Not that there's any Banelings here to take out his Charge or Storm, but that could have been worrying. I mean, it ends up going fine. He actually finds, like, not a very big army to tango with, at least when you have Storms in your side, a couple Force Fields, and he's going to take the fight.
Yep, and a bunch of the Hydralisks were pulled back. There was a Prism that went into the main base, got shut down very quickly. So the rest of the Hydras get back over to the front, and that's just way too much for him to push through. He's going to retreat. 16 Banes are being added. And one of my favorite things about this map is that the rush distance is pretty long, but as you break these rocks down, it becomes extremely short. The distance between those 2 center bases for both players is, I mean, that's like Xel'Naga Caverns to your rush distance now.
I mean, like, yeah, the rocks are broken down.
It's very, very, very close.
Yeah, but that's the nice thing about this map is that, like, they obviously considered this as a potential problem, and it's not like you are, like, right up against each other. You can go up the ramp, and still the Zerg player has room to maneuver around any potential force fields. Now, here are the Banelings I brought up earlier. They do not have speed, but maybe Drogo was surprised. His Archons and Storm just take care of them again.
Oh my God, no Bane speed. They get absolutely obliterated. Most of the Zealots are dead in this scenario, but really great cleanups there. There was another Zealot run by sent to the southwest. It's actually made its way onto that hatchery, so getting a lot of work done. 7 drones picked off, and also pulling the army every which way.
Now, Drogo did scout the Hive timing. I think he missed the Spire, but you usually assume that it's in tandem with each other. So I'm surprised he hasn't thrown on a fleet beacon. He is on 4 bases, very healthy economy, and he could try and do that as well as continue warping in the ground army, continuing the pressure. But it's like, it's actually a little worrying. The Greater Spire is almost done, although we do not have any Corruptors. It's one of those things where Nerchio knows that he could be attacked, and he has to take that very seriously. But then Drogo also knows like he could be surrounded, and speed could finish up for those Banelings, and suddenly it could go sideways, and then he has to deal with Broodlords. I mean, it's a very important fight coming up here. Now that speed is done, maybe Nerchio can take a better fight, but he just rolls through.
Ton of preemptive storms, gets all the Banelings, and now Petit Drogo is going to start pushing forward. There's the Prism reinforcing, adding in a ton of Zealots. The Archons are plowing forward. Storms landing across the Hydralisks on the south side, some of them eating the entire brunt of it. And Nerchio's army has been pushed to the limit. GG, Drogo takes game number 1.
That was a clean PVZ. I mean, I know Nerchio went down, which is unfortunate in his, you know, he's 3.
Late Bane speed in that first fight. Like, the slow Banes ate the full Storm, and like the whole point of the Bane speed in that scenario is that you can't just drop a Storm on them because they get out of it before it takes too much damage. But really great Storms on the Banelings, I think, was the key deciding factor. Those Banelings, if they connect, is even with whatever unit. I think like the math is if a Baneling can hit 3 units, whatever unit it is, it's cost effective in terms of the damage spreading out across everything. So when you get like 8 Banes even into the Immortals, suddenly it's a way easier cleanup. But really great control from Petit Drogo.
Yeah, I think that was, you know, the late Bane speed. I like the idea of transitioning again because I think Drogo might have missed the marker too that was happening. Yep. But, you know, luckily it was such a long time before speed. But then also the map really played to that. Even though there was a decent amount to maneuver around those bases like I was talking about, it still was more of a linear path for the Banelings to go through. When Zerg players, you know, we all know they want that big open space to get the wraparound, to be able to catch the High Templars as they retreat back naturally. And you couldn't do that in such a linear path. Very easy Storms for Drogo.
All right, so that does put him up 1-0. Nerchio riding the struggle bus against Protoss today, ladies and gentlemen. Channel your energy for him if you want to see the Zergy boy bounce back. I was hanging out in the chat earlier. You guys seem to be having a lot of fun. Don't have too much fun now. Don't have too much fun. You're going to wear yourself out. We got a lot of StarCraft coming today. A few more matches. We got the winners match next and the decider. And then we go to the Americas region. But before we do that, it's time for map number 2 as we load into Port Alexander for Nerchio versus Petit Drogo.
All right. Game number 2 in the losers match. In the top left, 1 loss away from being eliminated right from the get-go. It is the Red Zerg, Nerchio.
And his opponent in the southeast, up 1-0. He is our blue Protoss. He is Petit Drogo. Port Alexander coming in from last season's map pool. Pretty large. I feel like third base is a little bit further than on some of the other maps, but generally speaking, very standard layout. Nothing super crazy. Defining feature of this map for me, Zombie Grub, is there's a lot of airspace around behind the natural, the main. Makes it a really good map for hiding, you know, things like those overlords for scouting, or Phoenix for harass, ranged liberators, warp prisms, drops, all that jazz. It's all good here. Despite being a very long map, it has those features make it a little bit less of a turtle map because it is so much space to cover if you want to defend.
Yeah, I mean, we see some split map scenarios in this map, but I think it has more to do with the fact that it is not inherently, like, you know, so balanced one of the other favoritisms. So we get these, like, even games that go a lot longer and decent trades. You know, I missed my 4th base getting hurt, but so did you type deal. So we could see a decently long game. Again, that last game was okay until the fights, right? There was no real, like, you know, oh, well, he's down 20 drones. Of course he's going to lose the fight.
And the first fight, it's not like it was perfect. It was really those Storms on the Banes that did it justice because he had the Prism go into the main, and he did warp in Zealots. They all died instantly, like it was over in a flash. So it's not like he had like a huge snowball effect going in his favor. I do like seeing that double Stargate opener, though. The Protoss openings feel a little bit more flexible, especially because everyone's trying to mind game around this warp gate timing, since the adjustment. Since Stargate is still the best way to open, Oracles can still scout everything, same with Phoenix. Oracles can still keep you safe from Ling run-bys. You can still have access to build a safety void rate if you need it against something like a Roach Shove that your Phoenix sees early on. There's still really no reason not to go Stargate because the utility you're going to get out of this opening is just so damn good.
Yeah, I mean, we saw some Zerg players do some sneaky things, like Roach Burrow can give Stargate complications, but Nerchio is not really that sneaky of a player. I think like any good tournament player, he can, you know, throw in the cheeses.
Not as cheesy as he used to be. Yeah, we used to see him be aggressive quite a bit more, but he's just brought these very vanilla standard compositions and builds to today's matches, which maybe that's part of his problem. Maybe he needs to try and switch things up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, one of those things that you might want to be delicate about, but I think you do have to bring up that, like, Nerchio has maybe had some problems with Protoss recently. He's been a little vocal about the problems versus Protoss, and, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you hope that, that you can just push that away, but it's based off of something.
He is an opinionated player, to say the least.
But to go, 0-2 against a guy that you would... I mean, I gotta imagine that people are watching GungFu and they're like, no, he's good. Like, he's on ladder, but he's not,
Well, he's a ladder hero, right? That's
Nerchio.
That's what everyone always says. It's like, yeah, this is the kind of guy he'll knock off a few maps from top guys on the ladder occasionally, but he's never gonna go to a tournament, dominate, and really assert himself as a key player in the scene. But here we are today. So second Stargate is gonna boot up again after this Oracle. So I guess you go Phoenix, then Oracle, because you want to kill the Overlord and not let him see the second Stargate, which he did scout in the first game. So I'm interested to see if he can catch him off guard, and if he does, what that in turn means for him in terms of this game. Is it going to be big Stargate? We did get to see some of the Purifier Armada come out in the first match from GungFu Banda. He eventually went into that Tempest with the Mothership. Will we see something like that here, or will it just be another transition to that Storm with the Immortal Charge Lot Archon composition?
Once again, Nerchio going for the Roaches. I mean, it's a very safe opener until you figure things out, and as he did figure out the double Stargate last game, he just simply didn't make any.
Yeah.
In fact, I think he literally didn't make any. But I didn't check the units tab, so maybe a couple for safety. But yeah, you just drone through it and get a couple Spore Crawlers, maybe a couple extra Queens. There are some attacks you can do to try and, take advantage of the fact that Phoenix have to lift to even be able to attack around.
People have done Link floods onto like thirds with that. If they don't go for multiple oracles, then it's really good.
Exactly. But it's, again, it's going back to the whole, like, Nerchio has been playing these vanilla styles, and while the first two games today weren't the best vanilla macro styles, that last game was perfectly fine to bounce off of. Faster Baneling speed, a more open map, like Port Alexander. Suddenly, Nerchio actually takes some decent engagements.
And I think another thing we were talking about with the Roaches as well, the Adepts did kind of mess him up a bit in the GungFu Banda series, and he didn't really go for the Roaches that much. And now we're seeing him doing a little bit more safe. But I think it just ends up being, what, a total of 11 Roaches that he's going to have produced, which isn't really enough, I don't think, to do it serious damage. Yeah. Roach speed's not done. They're not going to cross the map crazy fast. The Phoenix are here to harass. And there's also double Robo being added. So we're going to see a lot of Immortals potentially coming out soon for Fati Drogo.
Yeah, this might not look that pretty for Nerchio. I mean,
Swarm forces
he's headed towards both the natural and the third base, and the Phoenix are not returning, even though they scouted some of the Roaches moving across the map, just trying to do as much damage as possible before having to return, but they have to be careful not to use too much energy. Roach is currently posturing on the third base. There are some units, no shield batteries, no Immortals quite yet, but again, it's just not that many Roaches. Here come some Lings to help them, perhaps.
Yeah, and let's see what he's going to be able to get done here. As those Lings are going to move out, the Phoenix do fly over them in the center of the map. Gets a good spot on those. Here come the Roaches. The Oracle is here. It has tons of energy on it to focus that laser beam down. But now that the ground unit's been cleaned up, it looks like Nerchio's attempt to catch him off guard may have worked. The Ling shouldn't be able to do catastrophic damage. All of these units on the Phoenix focus on dealing with the Roaches.
Yeah, I mean, he must have seen some of the Roaches and then didn't really pay much mind, and then suddenly to have them combined with the Lings pounce on that army, the Phoenix were a little late to save it, but maybe not late to save the Nexus? No, actually, that's totally dead. That's totally dead.
Tragic.
Well, if there's a couple shield batteries, maybe that's a different story. If the Immortals are out a little bit sooner, so on and so forth, but that ended up being a nice snipe.
Yeah, that's a really big snipe. It's probably the best thing that's happened for Nerchio all day, to be honest. Finally catching a break, it would seem. And yeah, not too bad at all. +1 in Charger on the way. More Immortals are being produced. This is the moment where you make that switch into Hydras and Lings as well. Get the Zergling upgrades going. Roaches, they just don't really seem to be that good. Like, the Hydraling Bane is just so much more effective against these armies if you can get around the storms, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Roaches are just, I mean, they're kind of inflexible. That's, some of their strength is that they're just really solid, and you can use them in all scenarios, but then later the game
I like them more for harass, I guess. I feel like when I watch PvZ, I feel like, because so many people just do the Immortal Charge Lot Archon, I feel like it just rolls over Roaches way too easily.
I think if you're going to do like a slow build up into Roaches, then Hydras, then Lurkers, for instance, like a very slow, steady thing, like then that's when I like them as well. But I'm with you. Like Ling Bane, Ling Hydra has more potency, and I think it's going to...
That's what concerns me, because we don't have...
Would love to see it.
There's still no Baneling Nest, Jessica, so Baneling speed is going to be very far off, which once again puts us into this awkward spot, because that'd be there's 2 times already today. 2 of these matches, he took fights without Baneling speed. And he got absolutely dumpstered in both of those fights. So I'm like, now the Baneling Nest starts up, okay, but then you got to wait for that, then you got to wait for speed. Charge is going to be done soon, Storm, +1, way before Baneling speed is a factor if Drogo decides to attack anytime soon.
Yeah, for sure. If he attacks, or even just tries to posture and find an opportunity to attack, you don't always have to just super commit at that time, then Nerchio might have some trouble. He's not just adding on a Baneling Nest that's a little late to actually help him. He's also adding on this Infestation Pit. Last game, he was almost to a Greater Spire and a Hive, but just lost way too much army. So if he can actually not lose that army, maybe not take engagements or buy some time, he might be looking again for the Greater Spire as the ultimate goal. There is the Hive there. Stormhost shenanigans, and Drogo did not scout that timing. What did he scout by going along the back edges here? He saw the Infestation Pit.
Yeah,
so.
Would have seen that there's some upgrades being obtained, but no knowledge of the Hive started. At some point you make the assumption, but it's also very likely he'll end up flying past there again just to see what's going on. The Phoenix are heading north-ish, but I guess maybe just for drones? Just for drones so far. Should I pick up?
Yeah, I think there is the jump there that he's like, okay, the Hive is on the way, but the Spire was not scouted last game either. I don't think it's not here this game.
I feel like you kind of prepare it on some level for the Spire, no matter, or for the Hive, no matter what, because if your opponent doesn't go for it, like, what are they gonna do? You know, since you already have 2 Stargates, it's not like you're worried about a Mutalisk transition. So at that point, it's either you're gonna fight against what you know he's already building, or it's gonna be a likely to fail Muta switch. But now the Prism is going to go to the north side, so we are going to see a little bit of harass action. The Phoenix are still on the south side, pushes that Prism back.
Yeah, really nice setup here. A Spore Crawler, a couple of Hydras, wouldn't take too much away from the main fight if one were to go down. And actually, speaking of which, we have Nerchio posturing. He's got a lot of Banelings that I'm not sure Drogo quite has sight on. He's missing a Revelation, for instance, to give him full detail.
You can't fight off creep here, though. 28 Banelings is a lot, but imagine trying to roll up that ramp into a storm. Ouchie wawa.
Yeah. But this could just be a front. You know, he actually has a really solid setup as far as, the creep spread goes. It's a decent amount away from his bases, so he could try and position and look for those surrounds. If Drogo were to be baited into attack, thinking that, oh, it's a, a lair-based army, I think I can go for it. Meanwhile, he is on his way to Aspire. It was a little late. If that is his ultimate goal, I'd say that's a bit late, but it is on the way. And hopefully it turns to a Great Aspire as soon as possible. There's Drogo repositioning to where there's at least a little bit of creep spread, but not as much. Cleans it up instantly, and Nerchio is both dealing with this, plus Zealots here, plus his 5th base being attacked. I mean, it's actually a lot to deal with.
Oh! Wow, some of the Banelings do connect on those High Templar, but not able to finish them off. That means we can still get some Storms and feedbacks here. Pickups on everything. So many Storms raining down on Nerchio's army. More Zealots going to charge in from the east side, flanking these forces. And that hatchery is forfeit for now. Zealots are going to pick off. No cancel on that north side base. Still a ton of Zealots by that Prism. More Storms are going to be able to hail down upon these Hydralisks. Looks like there's just 2 more Storms left.
That's a good point. He's almost out of Storms. There are a decent amount of Hydras left over and no charge lots either, so perhaps with a good Concave, he could take out this army. Even upgrades right now, but he has to split his Hydras to deal with the Zealots. Reinforcements also having to deal with that. Nerchio dipping down in supply. He is trying to keep that 4th base alive, so he's even on bases, but that goes down. His Hive is under pressure now, and Drogo just seems like he's going to take away the game from Nerchio with this momentum, but he's actually going to pull back.
Not sure what exactly Nerchio should do in this situation. We have the Fleet Bacon on the way, +3 attack on the ground for Protoss is being researched as well, and more Immortals are being built, but you talked about it. Trying to hold on to the 4th base, was not able to do so. The 5th died basically when it was about to complete without anything being saved, without it being canceled. So I think you just maybe bring those Archons back to the shield batteries and then get ready for another attack.
Yeah, just recharge with those Storms as well, which he was starting to lack, and that does get really scary. against how many Hydras were showing themselves. Nerchio is going to take this moment, breathe a little, get his 4th base back up over here, maybe try and double expand, but his eyes are on the Greater Spire finally. Again, just seems like it's the ultimate goal that he cannot quite get to. And in this game, Drogo not only took a good fight, but also has that transition prepared.
Yep, now he's going to try to push this ramp a bit. The Archons eat a ton of damage from the Hydras. Great concave here for Nerchio. This might be his best opportunity to strike, and Drogo will retreat. I don't think that's a ramp you want to push down. Nerchio definitely ready to exploit the positioning there. Zealot run by to that base, but it's, well, he never rebuilt it, so they're not doing nothing.
That's not a pretty sight for Nerchio. You know, at least hoping maybe they're a little slow to get into that fleet beacon. Should be seeing a mothership, and there it is. And then Tempests, carriers, actually what have you. Drogo might not be so like astoundingly far ahead in that supply, like, oh, he's clearly going to win, but he has a lot of things going for him. He should feel comfortable. Granted, he doesn't get totally surrounded. Then Nerchio actually just taps out.
Yeah, he kind of like baited forward with the Archons there, and every single Baneling just ran into 2 Archons.
Yeah, that's not good.
Not what you want to have happen. Don't run all your Banelings into Archons.
That is, you know, I thought Nerchio was going to have trouble in this group from the past, but I actually thought he was going to go to the decider match. To have him 0-4 out versus Drogo and Gung Fu, that's
not his best day. Not his finest hour, ladies and gentlemen, and that means that Drogo will move on to fight against whoever loses our next match in the decider. We have that winner's match coming up next. It'll be very exciting, as we've still got a Terran and another Protoss in this group that'll be duking it out. But Nerchio, who came in as my favorite, is eliminated here from WCS Winter. Coming up next, Gung Fu Banda versus Koss. And we'll be bringing you that after this. You're watching the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series.